Welcome to the Gravity Well podcast with me, Janey Olson. I host the Gravity Well to celebrate and share the stories of people looking to empower others with the knowledge and skills required to reestablish stability in our communities. My mission is to work through heavy issues in conversation and process in order to lighten the load. I acknowledge that I live on the traditional territories of Treaty 7 and Métis Districts 5 and 6. The treaties and self-governance agreements established by Indigenous peoples were created to honor the laws of the land, maintain balance with nature, and give back to uphold reciprocal relationships. This knowledge and intention are what guide the Gravity Well conversations. I ask for genuine dialogue, real hearts, and openness to different perspectives. This is your invitation to find common ground with me. Positions taken by participants, either individually or collectively, do not necessarily represent those of the Gravity Well. This podcast is dedicated to the natural world, our children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and all future generations. The Gravity Well is on YouTube and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe.
I am super thrilled to have Janey Olson in the studio today. Janey and I are going to be talking about the Olds AI data centers, plural, this crazy thing that you guys have been inundated with in short order and have rallied around and really been a beacon of hope for the rest of Alberta. So let's get into it, Janey. Let's first start with who you are, please. What brought you into this work, what you're up to in it, any of those details, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm Janey Olson. I've lived in Olds, Alberta for about 18 years with my husband and my son, and not really into the whole political scene, I think, until probably around 2020-ish, when things seemed to go a little bit strange in our world. And so it just made, I think, a lot of us just all of a sudden sit up and take notice of the changes, and even the need just for community engagement and the need for us as residents to actively participate on a municipal level, provincial level, and federal level. Specifically to data centers, it actually came about through the water meter program that was initiated within our town that many of us did not want to participate in. None of us are opposed to having our water paid for and metered appropriately, but this was new and this was a different approach. It felt like a change in contractual agreement to move from an AMR remote reader to an AMI constant monitoring within our homes. And I think that's the significant factor, is now it's within our homes. And so we took some offense, perhaps maybe is too strong a word, but we were just concerned. And so many of us started chatting. One resident in Olds lost her water for 6 months because she refused to meter.
You mean it was cut off? Or
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And so she and I just connected through a Facebook post that I made saying, hey, is anybody else concerned about these meters? And now we have 36 residents on a judicial review before the court coming in this fall. And because the town proceeded to take another 7 homes worth of water after an injunction had been given to the first resident. So we're just seeing some municipal concerns, to say the least, some administrative process that feels unfair and has not been mitigated very effectively.
Expert I spoke with for years, her name has escaped me right now, I'll find it, but she said it's confiscation without compensation.
Yes.
Very scary stuff happening to residents all around in rural Alberta, especially close to centers where there is a lot of water and a lot of concern about scarcity with it as well. So, okay, please proceed. You were worried about meters, and then what happened?
We were actually at a town council meeting with regard to helping this, my friend, my co-resident, get her water back and get a conversation before the council on the meter program. They did not allow that. They halted the meeting, went to an adjournment, horrified that she wanted to speak to this, address this issue in council. But that same day they were talking, we believe they were talking about data centers as discretionary use on light industrial. It was actually a typo in the paper. They had already passed the discretionary use in June, and this was September. So we had somehow missed that conversation, which I think happens a lot in municipalities where things go in the paper, they go online, but we're busy people with busy lives. And so it just kind of slipped under the wire for me personally. So then we started digging and thinking, wait a minute, there's bigger conversations being had, but all of the attention was focused on the old sundial property, which was it had been a plot plant that had not been successful. So that was a huge loss for the town. They were anticipating this revenue windfall, didn't happen. And so actively looking to find something that would fit into that. And data centers, by and large, seem to be a fit. And I think that was before most of us realized the power generation component that goes with these data centers. They're not simply warehouses full of computers. They are high draw energy users, high draw water users, and they need the 24/7 never-ending power generation, which in my estimation is not a light industrial concept. So that is what kind of prompted most of this. So while we're looking over here, look over here at Data District Inc., all of a sudden comes Synapse. I actually had Googled more information to find out about Data District, and the internet alerted me to the second one. I was like, wait, what? There's two? And so I went before council and just introduced that in a council meeting with regard to some land use changes. And I think they looked a little shocked that I was starting to redirect to the northeast quarter. And so all of a sudden comes Synapse, hot and heavy, promoted by the province, and then promoted by our economic development arm of the administration called Invest Olds. And both were publishing these welcomes and throwing our arms open to these data centers as though they were done deals, saying, we're glad to welcome, we're happy to announce. And that seemed very shocking and then disingenuous. All of a sudden, we're having open houses and there's concepts that are flying around, and the council don't have answers to some of our bigger questions. So a few of us connected through those open houses, and I said, hey, my home is open, let's meet. And so we started with about 10 or 15 people around my table Sunday nights, and it kind of exploded from there.
Kind of exploded is such an understatement. I just want to say I've been watching the Facebook group start. Now we have Little Town Big Data, or Big Data Little Town. Sorry, did I say it at the end?
Little Town Big Data.
Little Town Big Data. Please follow them on Instagram, and I'm sure everywhere else. This is, just bananas. I just want to highlight that it's my understanding Synapse is owned by, or being proposed by Brookfield, and there's a relationship with the United Arab Emirates in that as well. That's my understanding from looking at the stuff that Jody McPherson has been following for this. She writes for the Energy Mix, and she's been following your project quite closely, and the other ones. I think I have that right. I'll correct it in the notes if not. But yeah, just this surprise that there's one happening, let alone two. And so where are they being proposed? Can you be a little specific for people? Because I noticed you've got your map in the background there. Can you talk about what you're seeing in terms of how close it is to your town? I do want to give one number for people just to underscore I got from Jody, which is 1 gigawatt facility is the equivalent of adding 1 million homes in terms of power consumption. So that number is like adding 1 million people, let alone if there's two of these things and they're bigger than that potentially. This is like adding millions of people to the town of Olds in terms of power usage. Sorry, please go ahead.
True. So it's 1.4 gigawatts is the Synapse project by Jason Van Gaal, and that is proposed for the northeast corner in our town limit. So it's across the street from residential properties, within 30 meters of the Best Western Hotel, Boston Pizza. I mean, it's just right there when you come in on Highway 27 and 2A. That's that corner, and it's 320 acres. This is why I have my little drawing going, is that we've never been shown a rendering. We've been shown a flat one-dimensional picture, but for a $10 billion investment project, they can't produce a physical rendering. I have always remembered when architectural individuals want to come and they want to propose something, they bring these, little white buildings and little people and trees. They bring you something to have a concept of what this is going to look like, what it's going to feel like. We have not been given that. So I'm doing my own. And so I will be picking out my 3D print, hopefully tomorrow, of phase of the first set of data hall and mechanical yards. And it's pretty interesting. To put it in perspective, one data hall will be the equivalent of about 3.5 CFL football fields long.
It's insane.
20 locomotive engines, nose to back long. And that's just the data center, the data hall. That doesn't include the power plant part, which will go up to 65 feet tall with 57-foot stacks with 600 diesel generators, 800 chillers. Like, we're talking massive infrastructure that I think most residents who have not really heard too much or paid too much attention, I don't think they really know the scale that this is coming in.
Well, especially like you say, when you haven't even seen a rendering. The Wonder Valley project, they haven't had any public consultation with the province. I don't, unless I'm not aware of that. Whereas I see that Smith is coming to your community. I think it's June 24th to meet with your MLA. So there's just so many different variations of what's happening. I noticed like their proponent is hosting a town hall tomorrow, I believe it is. Yeah, just a lot of very imbalanced stages and rapid succession. I noticed there's 2 that are being proposed near Calgary now. I've heard that there's some in Bonnyville as well. I don't know if it's 1 or more. So, okay, great. So what's next in terms of like, what should people see? When should we help out? Like, I know right now we are talking about the statement of concern. That's something that we can do to help support your fight back. So can you speak a little bit about where you're at in the stage of this process and when the public needs to do something for your community and for Alberta?
Sure. So I think everything that is, anything that is helpful can be done right away. So it can be firing off some information, some concern to the province, even to the federal government, because this is a federal push down. Right. When it's ironic that for how many years we've plagued with carbon taxes to make sure our carbon footprint is small, and we're doing our part, only to now throw the doors open and say, oh, well, it doesn't really matter that we're going to pollute our environment, that we're going to not have a cumulative understanding of what the impact on water will be. Doesn't matter. We have to beat China in our data center rollouts. And somehow Alberta is the sacrificial province to do that. It's ludicrous to me. So to help, I think any level of help going federally, provincially, and municipally is great. But currently our process is the Alberta Utilities Commission, because that is the governing body by which the power plant has to be approved. And so currently there was a May 29 deadline to get in your statement of intent to participate. And that is, you go online, you file, you do an e-filing to have a login, you create an account, then you go into our, the proceeding number, 30732, and you can file a statement of intent to participate. And what that says is that you're willing to participate in this procedure, this procedural process. And you, May 29th was sort of the deadline for those to get that in, but you can continue to put those in even after the fact. And some of them may or may not gain standing, which is kind of their term for saying we're going to utilize that in the hearing. June 26th is the deadline for interveners to submit information requests or questions to the applicant, which would be the developer. July 10th, the applicant's deadline to respond to information requests. August 4th is a deadline for interviewers to submit written evidence, interveners, sorry. And then August 18th, also information requests. And September 1st is an intervener's deadline to respond to information. So they have their own system, which personally I feel has been a really positive experience. I feel that they've answered phone calls really well. They've helped people through the SIP part, we call it a SIP. It's been great. It's been actually super helpful and super encouraging. So there is a group called the Olds Rural Residents Development, I think, I'm sorry, it's the ORRD for sure. And it is our group with a lawyer that is provided through the AUC so that we can present evidence, we can ask for sort of these demands to be met. And we're understanding this is precedent setting as far as how many interveners. We're up to over 1,100 people have jumped in, I know, to this pool and said,
That's
hey,
amazing.
we want to support you.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, thank you so much for all of that outline for us, Janey, in terms of the timeline. And I'll be sure to follow up with you so that we can, as the public, jump in when it's most helpful in those timeframes. And I think I want to underscore what you said, because it's been my experience with the people on the ground in these government bodies. People want to do the right thing. They want to do their job well. They want to do good by the public. Unfortunately, it's the powers that be that need to hear that this is not in our best interest, and we have to say it loudly and consistently and bigger and louder as we go. So how about, like, how else do you see the public helping? So I heard submit our statement of intent, look for, I think you said 30732 is the file number. Great. Register, get that statement of intent in. I think from a general population perspective, the best way to express concern would be like adding those 1.4 million homes to the grid in Alberta suddenly. That impacts all of our financial situations in terms of the competitiveness of this. You talked about Alberta being the sacrificial lamb for this federal initiative. I think it has a lot to do with making use of natural gas, which I found in one of the town halls that you organized. There was some people that are very aware, like you said, 600 turbines. Where are these even coming from? Like, none of that makes sense in terms of access availability for this type of activity. It's very big stuff and not something to be taken lightly. And I'm so glad to hear that there's 1,100 people that have made it clear. That's record setting, incredible. So this is the leadership that's required in Alberta right now from people who are they care about their communities and want us to do well by each other and look after our water. Thank you for following the water. That to me is where we're at in this world. Understanding that water is central to everything we want to have in this world, and that giving it to AI data centers to compete with China for something that is not going to add any value to the common good is not something that we want to let happen under our watch. Anything I missed, Janey? Anything you'd like to add before we wrap?
I guess I didn't really touch on the second data center. So I think it's compounded for us as a town, is that on the southeast side, we used to have a pot plant that didn't obviously materialize, as I said. And so there is a proposed data center for that called Data District Inc. And they are foreign owned through Portugal and Swiss, I believe. And so I think their process is a little different. They have to have some kind of a federal foreign approval first, but then they will also bring power generation. So not as big. I believe they have different phases that they want to build at some point. So they would start with a very small regulatory power generation. And I think it's kind of like two different ways. Obviously, Synapse is going for gold and they're just going for the big stuff. Whereas Data District Inc. is starting small and then they'll incrementally increase. Our town has actually not given us a whole lot of information. They don't have a whole lot of information, but they suggested that for their turbines, they have purchased or can purchase decommissioned turbines. They will deconstruct them, bring them here and reconstruct them on site. Whereas I'm not exactly sure where Jason Van Gaal will source his diesel generators and his turbines. There'll be 20 50 megawatt turbines for him. It is massive infrastructure that these guys have to procure, but we're assuming that they wouldn't move this kind of pace without sort of having them in their back pocket. But I do know the AUC thankfully has thrown a bit of a curve to Jason, because he wanted an 85, forgive me if the numbers aren't perfect, but decibel generator, which is loud. And there are two lesser options, which he said, oh, it would cost us millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars out of our community benefits package if he went with this, with the quieter ones. But anyway, the AUC has required him to use the quieter ones regardless. So I don't know if that will change his procurement situation. But I mean, to come out and say they were going to try to all be operational this year is ludicrous.
Absolutely.
So, and provincial intervention is really key right now. I think if people are able to get onto the Alberta government website, they're able to send a message to the premier, send the message that we don't want to be data center guinea pigs, that we want to put a moratorium or at least some kind of slowdown to really understand what's going on. They've taken out the environmental impact assessment on both Wonder Valley and Synapse. Those are the ones that check the cumulative impact of water.
Right.
The AUC, that's not their primary. They'll talk about that, but that's not their primary. And they only focus project specific. They don't address cumulative impact.
Right.
So it feels, and maybe I'm incorrect, but it feels to me like they've taken out the safeguard of the cumulative impact of both power and water. Impacts on our environment, impacts on our communities. And that's a real caution for me.
Right. It's critical. It's critical. This is at a critical point in time. I can let you know, I have the privilege of being friends with Bob Sanford, who is a UN advisor on water. And he published an article in January, co-authored this year, speaking about water bankruptcy. We're on the cusp of water bankruptcy. So we cannot take this lightly. This is the most critical time to be looking at those cumulative impacts and what we cannot continue. And it's quite obvious in my mind that that is exactly why it's been thrown out the window, is because it would stop this obscenity. So yes, the scale of this needs to be understood. Thank you so much. I am very concerned about a foreign entity tiptoeing their way into this space. I imagine it would just be this phased approach, what we're seeing at the Wonder Valley proposal to start itty bitty and expand to an obscene amount whenever they get started. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for everything you've done, Janey. I'm sure we will be in conversation again. Enjoy the rest of your day, unless there was anything else before we close.
Just thank you. Thank you for paying attention to our little town.
Yeah, thank you for being heroes for Alberta. It's they do this on purpose, I think, so there's fewer voices to be heard. We have to support you just like we did with coal mining. This is no different in my view. Standing up for water is critical for us to recognize it matters for all of us, not just Olds.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you.